Arbatel, possibly my favourite grimoire. Don't know whether it is my favourite actually. It's difficult to tell. This book's quite good. Interesting edition, this one, because it comes with the original and the English. So for those people that hate reading and writing on both of the covers, both of the pages, you only got to read the right hand side, which is great. And you get to compare and contrast both sides of it. I will take the dust cover off because I end up breaking these dust covers very, very easily. So there we go, like that. This is a translation by, who was it? Joseph Peterson, and it's by Ibis. Really great name for a publishing company, I have to say. Now, first thing that springs to mind, okay, with this book, Grimoire, is that yes, it is a grimoire from the 1700s, I think it is. I think it's 1700s. Or is it the 1500s? No, don't quote me on that. I think it might be the 1500s. First started to appear in 1575, apparently. So we're talking 1500s. This book, right, is, I think, a symbol of certainly people in the Western world, the Western tradition, and so many people definitely, I think, can relate to this when it comes to people who are from a Christian background. This whole God thing, this whole Yahweh, worship the right God type thing, is a bit of a struggle for many people. The idea of being raised Christian and coming from that Christian perspective, which, let's be fair, if this is the 1500s, I'm going to not necessarily reveal my take on this book, but I'm going to talk about the greater, I think, journey of a person and fear, I think, because a lot of this sort of grimoire work comes down to fear from the practitioners. The first thing I'd like to say is this is super religious, super Christian. Okay, and you can take the perspective of a grimoire like this and you can say, okay, this is a Christian grimoire. This is teaching Christian magic. So if I want to be a good Christian, but I also want to be a badass magical practitioner, learn a grimoire like this, I'll be on the right track. But at the same time, some people from more of a modern, secular kind of perspective would just think, okay, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look past all the Christian stuff. I'm going to look past all of the God stuff. And I'm just going to think, I'm just going to substitute that. I'm just going to, wherever they say God or, that sort of thing, I'm just going to substitute that for universal, universal consciousness, the immovable mover, something like that, right? People that will transpose the stuff. With this, and going along this specific path with this grimoire magic, you cannot get away with the fact that all of the magical powers and such are done in service to a god. They just call it God, but done in service to God. So this is super Christian, like I said. Now, many people will say, okay, but it's coming out in the 1500s, it might not have had such a good reputation at the time with a lot of people, basically giving it a big thumbs down for the 15th century, 1500s equivalent of giving it a big social media thumbs down. A little bit of criticism on that, but overall, you cannot release stuff on magic and that without making it somewhat Christian-y looking. It's very difficult to get away from that. That's a very modern interpretation of that, and I can completely understand, because at the end of the day, if you were releasing works back in the day, you would probably want to dress them up somewhat Christian to get away with things, not being persecuted or, looked down upon or anything like that. Working through this book, however, I think there is not so much a case of we're just dressing this up in Christian iconography. This is legit, right? So you're either in the perspective of this is all just magical cultism that's being made look a little bit Christian so that we can all get away with all of that sort of thing. But also there's the perspective of, okay, what if this is the legitimate, this is the author who remains somewhat anonymous. Some people claim to think that they are a certain French person. Whether that's true or not, no one really knows. I'd like that to be true, because that would mean that there's quite cool story background of the possible author. It's pretty cool. I'm not going to say who that is. If you have a copy of this book, this edition, it will say who the name of that person is. I ain't going to give it away. But ultimately, the magical practitioner coming from a Christian-y background, I see this all the time. I see it as they're trying to wrestle with this idea that, okay, hedging your bets. Either it's Christian is the way, God is the way, Yahweh is the way, the great creator, all of that jazz. Or it's kind of like, okay, there's probably other things. I'm not entirely sure what that is, but there's probably loads of energies and such. And I'm just going to transpose my idea for when it says God to just universal, generic consciousness of the universe, not hell, damnation, fire, Father, Holy Spirit, kind of you're a sinner, evil, follow me, is my way or the highway type approach. Okay, so it's a very difficult one. You have to pick a side with this book. I'm sorry, but you have to pick a side with this. If you embrace the idea that there is only one God and it happens to be Yahweh, right? This book will read as a manual to become some kind of, I don't know, lieutenant, I don't know what's a higher up, commander or something like that, in the great side that is Yahweh. So this is either a training manual for how to be a, I don't know, general in the army of Yahweh, using all sorts of magical powers and stuff to give Yahweh what he wants, right? Or is ancient knowledge that's being condensed and made extremely generic and pushed out in the form of something somewhat Christian. Now, there's only really a couple of ways in which you can determine which the correct answer to that is, because there is obviously an answer. Either this is just, I'm going to make this look as stereotypically Christian as possible to hide older occult knowledges or such, or I've basically drank the Kool-Aid, there is but one God and it is the Yahweh type thing. Okay, if you work through this book and you really truly grapple with it, and then you compare it and contrast it with other magical systems that are based on the same underpinning energies, the same format, so planetary magic, because at the end of the day, whether you realize it or not, this is a book of planetary magic. Okay, this is evocation of the planetary energies through a very specific lens, and then a bunch of morals and ethical codes and stuff compiled onto the rest of it. Now, there are certain things that ring true within this book that, that your most generic people can understand, and it's one of the reasons why I can't go into as much depth as I'd like to without having a specific conversation with a specific person in front of me, because it's too difficult, right? But the book generally is probably one of the easiest grimoires in order to actually understand what the fuck is going on, because a lot of these grimoires are super kind of either bordering on cray-cray, or they're just really difficult to read and compare. And if there's long drawn out rituals and stuff like that, this is a fairly easy one, but obviously it still hides shit. In fact, it does say on page 11 in this edition, the first volume of the books of Arbatel concerning magic, whoever wants to know secrets needs to know how to keep secrets, revealing what may be revealed, sealing what may be sealed, and not give dogs what is sacred. Do not throw your pearls to pigs. Gatekeeping, right? That's what generally springs to mind when people talk about this kind of jazz. And I tell you what, throughout my entire magical career and throughout the numerous people that I've attempted to help teach, that is a difficult, possibly the most difficult thing to navigate. I have a problem with moral and ethical codes and stuff like that. I don't have a problem with should I go and kill that person using magic, of course, not like anything criminal, because we all know magic doesn't exist, right? Should I go and do this bad thing? Should I go and do this good thing? Do I do that moral dilemma? No. That has never been a problem for me. I don't ever have to really put loads and loads of thought. I know myself pretty well. I always feel, you know, that I'm 100% on board with the work and the approach I want to take. The most difficult thing that I ever have to deal with is how much to tell a student, how much to tell someone you're mentoring, how much to tell someone, how much to let them in, give them information that they do not understand, connecting the dots for them. That is probably the most difficult thing that I have to do personally. That's my opinion. I don't know if Chris thinks that, but that's my opinion. And this is summed up very beautifully in that whoever wants to know secrets needs to know how to keep secrets. You know, the whole idea of don't give dogs what is sacred, do not throw your pearls to the pigs, is a difficult one, because at the end of the day, if you don't already know the secrets of the book, are you a pig and I should not throw pearls to you, or a dog or something like that? It is very difficult. This idea of one having to struggle on their own to work out these great mysteries, but at the same time, as we all know from any fucking sci-fi fantasy film, there's always some Gandalf or someone like that that just comes along at the right opportune moment and makes that little bit of nudge, you know, whether it's a Doctor Who with a sonic screwdriver that opens a door for you or something like that, or whether it's someone that just defeats a little enemy. You know, they don't kind of take the ring and throw it in the volcano. I think isn't that the Hobbit or the Lord of the Rings, one of those ones. They don't do that for you, but they do assist you along the journey. That is the role that mentors play, okay, with this. And navigating the pathway is very difficult with the information that I want to share today. So I don't know how far I'm going to be able to go with this. I'll try and feel what feels intuitively right to me. But within this book, I don't think it's too much of a secret to give away the fact that this is uberly Christian. That is either you're on the idea that it's secret knowledge pretended to be Christian, or is actually the go-to handbook for making good, honourable, onward Christian Yahweh soldiers. Because the kingdom of heaven is built with the hands of man, as we know. Yahweh don't do a huge lot. He expects his followers to do all of the work. Not one of those CEOs that likes to get their hands dirty all that much, you know. So why have I book listed this? Why have I put a post-it note in this? Division of magic just descends from the Most High God through his good angels exercising their magic in place of gods. Right, okay. So we have the concept with this that everything comes from God, which we're going to use the term Yahweh here, okay, not to be generic. Yahweh, everything comes from Yahweh. Yahweh is the most powerful, all-being, all-knowing, omnipotent creature thing in the universe, created everything, and nothing can beat the Yahweh, right? There ain't nothing that can defeat the Yahweh. Everything comes from the Yahweh. And there are ways of obtaining power, and the best thing that you can do is basically just to do whatever Yahweh wants you to do. That's the general idea of this book, general idea of a lot of Christianity, not all of Christianity, I know, but a lot of Christianity. And this book is supposed to not only teach how to be a good soldier, because you are going to be doing work, you're going to be doing the work of the Yahweh, but also how to go about obtaining gifts and magic and stuff. Now, it does make a very specific thing clear. That is, you're either born a magi, a magical practitioner, you're either born that way or you're not. Okay, and if you're born the magi, these secrets will pop out of the book and you'll be able to understand them and learn them and get a certain amount of get so far with them, right? So this is kind of like the idea of that you have a great quest and task that Yahweh's preordained for you that you're going to go and do, and if you're a magi, a magical practitioner, then you need to learn a magic, right, to get that done. Like a whole quest. Would make a brilliant film, no doubt. But you're never going to be as powerful as the Yahweh. And there are a lot of things that you can command and help you along your way, but at the end of the day, all of your power and influence comes from the Yahweh. Now, a lot of this idea is they will, with the other camp is, oh, well, we just substitute Yahweh for some kind of Neoplatonist all idea of the all. So I'm okay. I'll just think of the all whenever it says God in this book, right? This is potentially something that's super scary and dangerous, because if this book works and if this book produces some kind of a magical effect of that, how is it working? Now, I can tell you and reveal that sort of level of information really fucking easily, because I can tell you that this entire book is based on planetary magic. Now, here's the danger. If we're going for this idea that the Yahweh's in charge, and whether we believe the Yahweh to be really in charge or whether we believe him to be some sort of demiurge having a tantrum, right? Really depends. Either the Yahweh is greatly in charge and this is the only way to learn magic, righteous magic, the right sort of magic, goody two-shoes magic, not that evil pagan magic that they say is far inferior, because it does say that in this book, basically, that the pagans, although yeah, they can do a few tricks, their magic's inferior to that of the high god and such. We have to grapple with this situation, because this book can work. It can work, and it can work for anyone that understands planetary magic. In fact, if you understood planetary magic, you'd probably just keep this book on the shelf as a kind of like nice little thing to smirk at from time to time. Maybe I'm showing my bias here, but potentially. But ultimately, you're thinking about, okay, underpinning on energies of the universe, spirits and so forth, how can they serve me to do my bidding, my work? That is the kind of witchy perspective. I want to do some stuff, I'm going to go and do it. With this book, it's a case of you want to do some stuff to glorify God. You're only doing this because it's the right thing to do, because the book tells you what's kind of right and what's kind of not. Helping your fellow man and all that, right, is good work. And you can use this magical stuff to protect people and to heal people and all that sort of stuff. And that would be the work of God, so say, right? So it's not like this book isn't teaching you magic. It does come with some warnings about you should never ever do anything evil, and that if you do anything evil with the magical abilities that you get from the book and all that sort of thing, then it's either not going to work or you're going to basically suffer the consequences. Which, as we know from planetary magic, is a complete and utter bullshit. Which brings me on to the point I want to make, my first big point. Okay, my first big point is this. If we're going for the Yahweh is in charge of the universe and everything, so there is only one God, the only high God, that is Yahweh, and all of the rest is bollocks, right? If we're going for that, okay, then this is the most powerful magical system out there, essentially, and that God is the most powerful magical being, God, whatever, in existence. If we're going for the other perspective, however, then you've got the Yahweh God, which may be quite powerful somewhere not here. So he's not right at the top, like this book would have you believe, but he's some kind of mid-tier manager kind of situation, right? And in that case, if he's around here, then it means that he's giving you knowledge to serve him to do work, but it is very much kind of creepy culty. You know, this is a case of, well, he's got things that there's things that he isn't all powerful, greatly powerful, but not all powerful. And also, what system is he giving you? Because the system that he's giving you, is that system drawing energy from him, or is he teaching you a system that is just a very, I don't want to say sanitized, but a very locked down, that's a very good term, very locked down system that would otherwise be not so locked down. So we've got a couple of things that we need to ponder. Is the Yahweh the high God, and that, yeah, we should all just do what it says because at the end of the day we don't want to go to hell and shit? Or is it the case of we've got the Yahweh, this mid-tier manager, trying to convince everyone and everything that it is the high God? And if that is the case, do we take approach A, he has created this magical system for us to draw energy and power from him? Or is it a case of he's cobbled together, like the RM safety net at school that stops you looking at porn and such? Has he just taken something as glorious the internet, because the internet's a magically amazing place, and just put a shitload of RM safety nets and child protection locks and shit on it to stop us from unlocking things? Ultimately, I cannot reveal that information because the book said you're not allowed to reveal that information. However, what I will say is that this book is primarily planetary magic based. And the dangers of this book is that he's giving you each of the planets and he's saying one must go through each planet via this link, this name. It gives spirits for each planet, right? Sigils and stuff like that. And they're not the most generic ones. So one could say, okay, I am just giving you something to aim for, a target to aim for, right? Okay, I'm just saying, okay, this is various underpinning energies in existence, planetary energies, so on and so forth, whatever. I am just going to give you these names so you can get a real lock on them, lock on something, because I need to give you something to lock on to make this system work. So I'll give you some names. Is it that? Is it just someone doing the generic kind of Yahweh or whoever wrote the fucking book doing this generic, yeah, okay, we'll give them a target to go for? Or is this you're only to go through this conduit because this conduit, computer, is the one with all the safety nets on, and one can't be going through any other portals or names or stuff like that because I haven't got no safety nets on those, you know? Very difficult to ascertain, because if that's the case, then this is literally the guidebook to the APN. Oh, it's literally like their inner, like what is it? The Mormons, they have their elder book, don't they? Guides to elders and stuff like that. This could literally be one of those for the APN, which makes it even more interesting and fascinating. But at the same time, if this is one of those things where Yahweh is the great high Yahweh and such, then we'd all better buck our ideas up, because we better be following this stuff. And a life of servitude apparently is very wholesome and fulfilling. I know that because the book told me. Okay? Now, there's a couple of things that I did highlight in this, and for the life of me, I can't really remember why I highlighted them, but we're going to go for it anyway because this is live. They've given several divisions of magic. The first division of magic is twofold. One way is given by God to creatures of light. The other is similarly from God, but given to creatures of darkness. Okay, so basically, in order to gain power, magic, blah, 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 you basically have to be given the power in the first place from God. Okay, so demons and the baddies, they get given a power from God. They just do bad shit with them. Angels and stuff, they get given the power by God. They do good shit because they're like the hall monitors, right? So you either have to be born with the gift, right? That's the first two divisions, and be a baddie or a goodie. The second division of magic is that which accomplishes its effect with visible tools through the visible. So that's basically magic, right? Our idea of magic, witchcraft, whatever. Another way is with invisible tools through the invisible. And yet another way is with a mix of techniques and tools. We're basically talking about magic here. The visible forms of magic are the ideas that, and bearing in mind this is an old book, if I get a bunch of herbs and stuff like that and make a potion and go and cure someone, that's visible. It's all physical world. Physical ingredients, physical world only. Yeah, science, we call it now. The other one would be for the invisible. So the invisible world, unconscious, doing everything in the astral, doing everything and tinkering with things and energetically just sitting there like that, right? Like Yoda or some shit like that, right? And then the third section in there is doing a mixture of both, which is what we'd consider to be a little bit more traditional witchcraft. Yeah, pulling spell ingredients together, lighting a fucking candle in the physical world, but there's a lot of other invisible magical stuff going on. Yeah, spellcasting and that. So basically, the second division of magic is that magic, right? The third division of magic is that which accomplished solely by invoking God. Ooh, this is partly prophetic and philosophical. So basically, a lot of these ceremonial magicians that are call on or prayer or stuff like that, oh, okay, I'm going to evoke the energy and ask. These ceremonial magicians that like to cast a magic circle, conjure up a spirit and say, Mr. Spirit, please can you do this for me? That is kind of like the next rung down. So putting these in order, because there is another division, a fourth division. Fourth division makes me laugh out loud, lol. So going for the first division. First division, most powerful. You're born with it because you're an angel or something. Magic flows throughout you. Second division, learn some witchcraft. Third division, conjure up some spirits, get them to do it for you. And the fourth division is the one that fascinates me the most, because if this was a good Christian book, you can tell this person's a little bit of a free thinker to a certain extent. Because if Yahweh said this, then this would be very, very much of a, I don't know, would completely shake the foundations of Christianity. The fourth division is the magic which descends from the Most High God through his good angels exercising magic in place of gods, such as magic of the Balim as a spirit. Another magic is exercising through the governors of evil spirits, such as that which was performed through minor gods of the pagans. So basically, if they ain't goodies or baddies, so the pagan magics come in here, because the pagans are kind of, are they goodies, are they baddies? I mean, they're not mentioned in the first one. I mean, we got the goodies, angels, we got the baddies. Fourth division is kind of mentioned in pagans. It doesn't actually say pagan. And minor gods, which basically means that yes, there is such a thing as other gods other than Yahweh in this idea and stuff. So, you know, a bit difficult. Fifth division is that there are some are able to deal openly with spirits in person, face to face, but this art is given for a few. So we're talking about mediumship there, because we all know mediums have got to be somewhere fucking low down, because they're really shit, aren't they? Let's be fair. If you've ever worked with mediums, then you'll know that most of them, unless they learn magical practice, are basically, well, mediums, aren't they? They are the bitches of spirits. They just puke out what they're told to puke out, right? The sixth division is that some work through immortal creatures and others through magical creatures. So this idea is basically, I suppose, working on the perception, or the idea that you get to know elements, elemental spirits, but also there might be magical creatures and stuff like that. It says about pygmies and stuff like that, satyrs, nymphs. We're really talking about the local energy, so I suppose you'd say like land spirits and stuff like that, I'm presuming, is what this means. The seventh division is that the spirits serve some people voluntarily without any special art, while other people, they hardly obey, even when evoked according to the art. Basically, that means spirits that like you are going to do shit for you, right? They're just going to do it. You don't need to ask them. They, you know, at the same time, you can get a spirit that don't like you and you can threaten it and possibly even use some of the magic in this book and it will still say, no, I'm not doing it. I don't care you said the CEO's done it. I'm not doing it. In which case, the book doesn't then go on to say what will happen to said spirits. Maybe God himself, this CEO, will fire them or something. I don't know. That could happen in a company or organization, couldn't it? But at the same time, maybe they just get a slap on the wrist or a confirmation of a verbal warning. Like I've had many in my careers. So, these ideas of divisions and classifications are basically magical practitioners trying to sort them out where the magic lies. Where does the magic lie? Okay, so the magic lies for the least powerful in spirits like you say they do your stuff. So that is possibly many things can come into this. Within that section, there's a fascinating one because it says, of these categories of magic, the most excellent is that which depends only on God. The second is that those whom the spirits faithfully serve. The third belongs to Christians through Christ's power, which he has in heaven on earth. i.e., you got the big God, you got an official channel, which is the Jesus, and then you got you. Do you draw power from the big God, in which case that's a higher division, or do you draw power from the Christian, the Jesus, the graphical user interface, as you were, to use a programming magical kind of techie term? Because as we all know, you can do things a lot quicker by typing in a terminal and going to the back entry coding way. But at the same time, it takes a long time to go through, but is easier to understand for the layman and non-magical folk or non-computer program to go through a graphical user interface to use your little mouse to click on shit, right? Lowest division of all is basically drawing your power from Christ. So the power of Christ compels you. Lowest division, apparently. In fact, that division's underneath when magical creatures and angels and shit take a fancy to you and like you, so they just simply do shit for you. Fascinating divisions. You can read these divisions in the book, but essentially the only division that we're interested in, and this is something that actually is worth really thinking about, because we call magic, but as we all know, there are many different magical systems, and when you think about how that works out from a logical perspective, and then you see how it reflects on magical practitioners and their practice and who can take who in a fight, or who can accomplish who can accomplish what, and basically power levels or abilities with magical practitioners. Some of this very much does ring true, because as we all know, these people that go around pulling energies in, I've seen priests and such that use and read from the Bible and pull in the power of Christ, be able to do stuff like that. It can happen. They can do exorcisms of buildings and stuff like that and get rid of things. It's a very fucking low level magic, but it's still there. Same as I know that, well, actually, spirits take a shining to certain people, individuals and things. So there's a bias to a lot of spirits, and they'll just do something for you or work against you, regardless of what level you're realistically at, just because they can't fucking stand you, as it seems. One makes enemies, what can I say? It's biased, because there is such a thing as magical racism, which basically means that some spirits, through no fault of your own, don't like your energetic layout, components, schematic, whatever. They don't like your soul, right? They don't like your soul. They have a bias towards your soul, and it don't matter. You ain't gonna have a very good working relationship with them. Okay, all of these ideas, the ideas of mediumship as well, of, okay, I'm going to get answers to questions and stuff from spirits that just come to me, mediumship picking up on things. But then we've also got the ceremonial magicians that are a little bit higher up that are actually targeting, whereas the natural mediums are kind of like, well, if it's in the room and it starts blabbering at me, then I suppose I'm going to either have to put my little hands on my ears, leave me alone, or I'm going to have to take on board, right? Whereas the magicians, because there's a structure, which is why they're a little bit higher up this tier in the Arbatel, is a case of, I can switch this on and off. I'm going to evoke this spirit because it knows this. I'm going to call it up on the phone, video call, projection in front of me, whatever, evocation, and I'm going to talk to it and I'm going to get rid of it. Idea. The idea, of course, is fascinating with the fact that they rank what we probably consider to be spell work. That's type of where you're doing the work yourself and rearranging things so highly on this. In fact, it is tier number 2. So it is literally the second most powerful form of magic, they say, is this kind of idea of you understanding magic, which is funny, really. And this is what this book aims to teach you. Obviously, the primary division is, I'm just doing what God wants. God appears to me and tells me to do stuff, and that's why Moses beat the magicians and such, because they did not draw their power directly from God, whereas Moses did. I'm going on question now, aren't I? How much time have we got? We're on 34 minutes. Bloody hell, it feels like I've been blabbing for a hell of a lot longer than that. Yeah, so this idea is quite a fascinating one. What I also like in the back of this book is that it gives this thing, because, as anyone that's been in a cult will tell you, there's got to be rules that you follow, but there's also got to be taboos. So there's got to be good things and bad things. And this book gives them both in English in the original, which is fascinating if you think about it, because there's good forms of magic and learning and understanding in sciences. Philosophy is apparently good. Knowledge of the Word of God, arranging one's life according to the Word of God, is a good, that's a good, worthwhile, good form of magic. You're allowed to do that. Knowledge of the government of God through the angels, which scriptures call blah blah blah, basically understanding the hierarchy of spirits and such, that's a good thing. That's fine, you're allowed to do that. Knowledge of natural things, again, understanding the universal structure to a certain extent, as long as it's natural, that's a good thing. Wisdom in human affairs, basically that means, to a certain extent, I suppose I'd take that to mean psychology, so getting to know your fellow man, but also getting to know sociology, being a good merchant, you know, not being some kind of crazy ass capitalist that wants to basically launch a pharmaceutical company and prey on victims of diseases and such. That would be considered bad. The Yahweh would not like that. But if you're starting up a plastering business and are doing a fair price for your plastering, that's good, okay? That's very good. On the sciences that are naughty sciences that one's not allowed to learn, evil, it says, quite literally. Evil. Cacosophy, which includes atheism. Atheism's bad, obviously. Adultery. And adultery doesn't mean adultery as in having a sex with someone that ain't your husband or wife. Adultery is in worshipping and utilization of idols, and it makes specific references in this book as to it's a very big, I wouldn't say grey area, but one where people go off of the appropriate means of magic. So it does talk about the use of kind of incorporating that into magical practice, but at the same time it also references the fact that actually be very careful with where you're pulling your energy from. Are you pulling it from this idol? What I would take to that is that it doesn't want you to accidentally transpose the high god with some random god that's obviously much lesser, like, I don't know, Pan or something like that, right? Don't confuse our God, the good one, the one that the book was written about, with some other random one. So be very specific with the God that you're focusing on. Also, the idea of accidentally creating egregores. That often can happen with idols as well. To scorn the protection of the angels and associating with devils. You're not allowed to associate with devils. The devils are a no-no, okay? Ignorance of the government of God through the angels. So basically, we all know angels are nitwits and annoying, a lot of them anyway. Okay, there's a couple of cool ones in there, but most of them are really fucking annoying, like public servants when you go and you really need something and they tell you to fill out a dozen forms when actually all you do is click a button on the fucking computer, you know. These sorts of people. Don't fight against the natural order. So as it says, God's natural order. So the magical idea of the angels and the hierarchies of angels and stuff like that. Don't try and use necessarily. Just embrace it, right? Because if you try and always usurp that, it leads to naughty shenanigans, and therefore you're going to be bad. And I do believe that this book also says that there's possibly a price for being a baddie, and that's probably hell. Let's be fair, it normally is, isn't it? I'm pretty sure it says that in here somewhere. Contempt for the word of God and living according to the will of the devil. Because the devil is a conniving trickster, you see. So the devil doesn't want you to gain power necessarily, but at the same time, as the book alludes to, the devil also wants you to gain power. Basically, if you're a young Jedi Padawan, you're trying to find the way, you follow the ways of the light side of the Force. If you're following the baddie, Emperor Palpatine, devil, whatever, you're following the dark side of the Force. What it's saying is be very careful. You want to stay with the good side of the Force. The bad side of the Force, yes, it can get you wisdom and power, but don't go there because you'll suffer for it. Of course, the idea that if this is not the high god, so not some all-powerful being, the fact that this would be some mid-tier manager trying to stage a fucking coup or something means that the good side is actually the bad side, which of course is the thing that you yourself, if you're willing to go down this route and want to go down this route of studying magic, particularly Christian magic, and the Arbatel is a good one for that, you need to work that one out, because you could be on the wrong side thinking that you're on the right side. And ultimately, if you're not picking a side, the book says that's as good as picking the wrong side. It's a difficult one. I don't know if we've got any questions, but there is a comment that's just popped up. Let's see if what's popped up. Can you read my comment? I've just read your comment, but it just says, can you read my comment, which was not the most exciting comment, if I'm honest with you. Try and come up with a better comment and I'll read it out, as long as we've got some time left. So there we go. Arbatel, which side are you on? Now, I alluded to the fact that this is either the good high god and you're on the good path, or you're on a bad path that looks like the good path. How does one navigate through that? Well, ultimately, like with anything, when trying to work out who's a lying bastard, there are multiple sides to a story, because there is obviously the one side, the other side, the truth. You know, if there's other witnesses and such, there's many sides of the story. And many people have the idea that what I'll do is I'll have a couple of questions and such, like how was the universe created? Who is the most powerful head honcho, you know, in this universe, and the others, and random shit like what happens when you die, blah 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 blah, all that crap. Do you know Jesus? Is Jesus real? Type situation. And they'll go around and they'll just start evoking and conjuring up spirits and asking as many spirits as possible. Or basically, like if a crime happens, like some old lady gets pushed in the road and ran over, you might go around as a little detective, which a detective is what you are if you're asking questions like this. And you might be going, you person, did you see what happened? I didn't see a thing other than the fact that the lady decided to run into the road, when that person may be the person that pushed her and is a lying bastard, right? But at the same time, there may be other people, such as the blind person down the road, that just said, well, I heard a shriek. You know, it's like, does that really give me much information? And then there could be another innocent bystander, you know, that said, no, she definitely ran into the road, but that might be best friends with the other person that pushed her. I mean, this is a very difficult thing. A lot of magical practice, people take that approach of, I just go conjure up every spirit ever imaginable, go for all the grimoires and that, just ask them, and then compare and contrast. Putting it like that, you realise how futile that actually is, because what about all of the things that aren't in the grimoires and all the other stuff? Eventually you're going to die. Now, with this book, and just going through a perspective of this book, because it teaches planetary magic, most forms of planetary magic, the good ones teach you how to get to know the planetary energies in their most purest, rawest forms. Okay? Purest forms. Others teach you how to get to know them in a, I don't know, segregated, shut down, yucky form. So if you have ever learnt to cook, and you've learnt to cook only using crap processed ingredients, you may think you've made a good meal and know how to make a nice nutritious supper for you and your family, because that's all you know, because you've only ever shopped in somewhere that sells out of date, nasty produce, or stuff that comes out of a can that's been sitting there for years, you know, GMO foods and such. And you've never learned to go to a nice farm shop with fresh raw ingredients and put those in that aren't like some GMO nasty shit, right, or processed crap. And the compare and contrast is that the danger with this book, what are you getting? Are you getting GMO crap that is teaching you a system, but is teaching you a system that's very biased? Or are you getting the legitimate farmer giving you alliums and basically, sorry, crops and stuff like that to go and, you know, cook a nice nutritious meal, and that you taste that and you know the difference. Because the idea is this taste, this idea of tasted energies, and whether there's extra layers on top, whether you're getting what you know. And the idea and the most important thing for me as a mentor is to help people make sure, because I don't care about people's morals or ethics. The important task for me is to make sure that people are latching on to the right targets. And the right targets are the purest forms of energy of a thing. So if we're talking about planets, we're talking about Mars, Jupiter, all of that sort of stuff. Never mind the mysteries. The first thing we need to know is how to attach and get to know and feel the actual purest state. Okay? Because if we take something like a tomato and we grow the tomato and we understand the tomato and it's beautiful, nice tomato, and then we go and make some tomato soup and it tastes ever so yummy, putting some extra herbs and ingredients in, okay, but tomato based soup, important. But then at the same time, if that person's only ever got a cheap knockoff 25p tomato soup by some discount supermarket that's got all sorts of preservatives and processed stuff in it, they've never really tasted tomato soup. And this is a very big danger. And I'm not telling you if this is legit or not. You've got to go away and find that out for yourself. I think someone's put a comment. So, I guess the book doesn't mention how to conjure them. Am I right? There is no instructions for making of the tools. Yes, it is a grimoire. It tells you everything you need to know. Right? Unlike a lot of other grimoires, though, it makes things very simple. So you haven't got to do all of this crap about... I mean, it basically is doing something very similar to how I teach, funnily enough, which might be one of the reasons why it's one of my favourite grimoires. Not just because I get a lot of students from more of a Christian background and having them wrestle with the idea of, is this a good book or a bad book? Can I learn from a good book or a bad book? Is this steering me in the right direction or the wrong direction? Is something that's such an important lesson in life. You need to be able to learn how to steer your own boat. But yes, this is a full grimoire. It is apparently, I believe, the first of 8 books, but the first one is this one, Arbatel, and then the other 7 I don't believe have ever been published. You cannot get them on the internet or from Amazon or anything like that, put it that way. Whether you work through this one and you can then get them, I wouldn't be able to say, but ultimately, yes, it is a full grimoire. It does teach you how to evoke the spirits and stuff like that. I thought that that's the least interesting thing to talk about today, because you can go and buy the book if you haven't already and talk about that, or just download it for free on the internet. You don't have to buy it. It is available on PDF for free. And ultimately, why would we waste our time with talking about that when you can just read that, right? And have you worked with the spirits of this book? That's a very interesting question. So have I worked with the spirits in this book? I have worked with the spirits in this book that are in a different mood than the ones with how they present themselves in this book. So what am I saying by that? I've worked with tomatoes, but I haven't necessarily worked with the exact tomatoes in this book, but I have worked around them. I've been in the kitchen when the tomatoes were being worked with by other people. I work with tomatoes myself. I grow my own tomatoes. I don't know if that answers the question. I think it does in a somewhat cryptic way. And I think as magical practitioners and occultists, we're supposed to make things like uberly cryptic and stuff like that. But basically, I've encountered the spirits in this book, yes. Do I choose to work with them? No. Are they another face on a dice? Yes. Because they are planetary energies. Make no mistake, the spirits in this book are from the planetary realm, the 7 classical planetary realms, 7 classical planets. But they are specific spirits within those realms. So this book tells you to go after a specific spirit, so a specific martial spirit, specific Jupiterian spirit, specific Venusian spirit. It doesn't say go to Venus. It goes, if you want to go to Venus, go on this tour. I shall share with you a story. It's a shit story, but it is a story nonetheless that could potentially be also another way of explaining what I'm not supposed to say. And that story is, I've been to Egypt a number of times, right, physically, and I like to go and explore kind of ancient sites and stuff like that. Egypt's got some wonderful ancient sites, right? But there, when I want to go to Egypt, I want to go on a big tour where I just go to loads, because I've had to go before to fly to one place and then fly to another, but I've never done like a bunch of them from Upper Egypt to Lower Egypt, right? And I really want to do that. Now, there's specific places I want to go, and some of those places aren't on the tour. So you can go there, but you need to, you know, basically arrange it yourself, transport and all that sort of thing. They're not like packaged holiday type tours. Now, with this, we can equate that, because I was offered the chance to go with Creation Ministries. Creation Ministries is this uber big creationalist church, okay? And they said, you want to go to Egypt, Liam? Why don't you, this is one of the people that wanted to take me along for the ride to go to this place and on this tour. And Creation Ministries create this tour of Egypt. But that tour of Egypt goes to very specific sites and does not stop at other specific sites that most people, even if you go on a package holiday, tend to. Because this specific tour is about the Bible. And all of the things that it stops at are things that are related to the Bible. Okay, the biblical story of the floods and all that sort of stuff, and Moses and that. So they go with things, and they go to monuments, and they point at inscriptions and point at monuments and statues and stuff, and say, you know, this is coming from that. This is how we know this. Blah 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 blah. Unfortunately, if you were to go on that tour and stare at this monument, what you may find is a couple of miles the other direction may have something on a monument and an entire building that actually says the complete fucking opposite of what this tour guide is saying is proven in this other monument. I.e., if you go on a Creation Ministries tour of Egypt, you will look at evidence and stuff that supports what that tour group wants to support. If you go on other ones, there's a flavour. Some of them are a bit hodgepodge in that they just sell package holidays and something. They just want to make money by taking you to all of the easy places to get to. Nice little river cruise type thing. Others are a bit more like John Anthony West, I think, is all about the aliens and shit. But actually, what you need to think about is you need to think about grimoires are cobbled together systems, and they are cobbled together by humans. That Creationalist Ministries is a cobbled together tour with people with an agenda. The person that wrote this book has an agenda. Is there energies behind the person that wrote this book? Probably. Will they have an agenda? It have an agenda, whatever? Yes. One must be very, very careful, okay, with things like that. And it's completely the opposite to what I was taught as a child, because people talk about beware of liars and stuff like that, and baddies. And I have to say, in my life, in the mundane sense, magical sense, and all the other senses, I have learned so much from nice people. I've learned so much from bad people. I've learned stuff from truth, people that try to tell the truth. I've learned stuff from people that tell lies. All of this stuff is knowledge and stuff. Now, the reason why I don't want to sit on, you know, reveal my personal interpretation of this book, because it is possibly my favorite grimoire, and now I've said that already, is because it's a journey for yourself. So compare and contrast. If this is a book of planetary magic, evoke the spirits from this book, invoke the spirits, work with the spirits from this book on something, get an audience with them, talk to them, get to know them, and then go to other spirits that are also of the same energy, other Venusian spirits, other Mars spirits, mercurial spirits, that sort of thing. Go to those as well, because at the end of the day, if we're dealing with Mercury or we're dealing with Venus or Sol or whatever it is, Saturn, if I go to one Saturnian spirit and he gives me a bunch of stuff, and then I go to another one and he gives me more stuff or less stuff or has a different interpretation, it's like logging onto different computers at school. If I logged onto the teacher's computer, I could go on games and stuff and research naughty things and type naughty words into Google and it all pops up, like quite literally pops up. And then if I go to one of the student computers, I can't get to these things. They're not on there. They don't even show results. So it's not like I'm seeing something that I can't click on. It's not even there, right? With a lot of energies and spirits and stuff like that, that is so much the case. Now, there are hierarchies within planet when it comes to planetary magics. So some spirits of Saturn, for example, can do things other spirits can't, because it will depend, because there are hierarchies, like I said. But at the same time, there's also bias, because this is a filing system that we use to understand the nature of things and how they balance basically the universe. That's what we essentially do. So we need to make sure that we vary our taste buds and understand what different tomatoes taste like. I'm not saying only go for the nice tomato that the farmer down the road grows. I'm saying sample lots of tomatoes. You know, go for the little tiny salad tomatoes in Tesco's. Go for the really cheapo, nasty ones that are in a can. You know, go for the fancy ones that are expensive. Try lots of things, and by comparing and contrasting the flavors within one thing, which is tomatoes, Martial energy, solar energy, Jupiterian energy, whatever, experiencing those, you will get and be able to build a palette. When it comes to other random spirits you've never encountered before, someone gives me some weird green thing, and I say, it's green and it's like a cube, but it tastes almost like tomato. I get that tomato. It tastes like that tomato. It tastes a little bit like this one. To which someone could come around and say, this is some new tomato we've created in a lab. We've made it green just because it was a byproduct of the process. But what we wanted to do is recreate tomatoes that are easier to stack because it saves on transportation costs. So we thought instead of making them round, we make them square and then they just stack in the box and you can fit more in. How did you know it was a tomato when it doesn't look like a tomato? And I can say, well, it doesn't look like a tomato, but the taste of it is tomato-like. I cut it down, there's essence of tomato. When it comes to energies, pure state energies exist within the planetary magic kind of spectrum, I suppose, planetary magic system. Spirits outside of that, if they're spirits, then they have to include planetary aspects in them in order to exist in this form of creation that we live in. So I can taste the tomato in something. So for example, raw state tomato, a soup that contains tomatoes or a pizza, I can say, this isn't a tomato, but it's got tomato in it. Okay. I've talked about this on the Planetary Magic one when I got that horrible Llewellyn book and talked about planetary magic. So we can talk a little bit about this further. But at the end of the day, I am out of time now. So I'm going to have to say goodbye because I've got magical consultations with people. So yes, bye everyone.